chain, and I hope that in the future we can work in a more integrated way with the whole migration challenge.
Yes. Any concrete measures have been discussed while you've been here during your visit on migration with the authorities?
Well, I met this morning with the Deputy Prime Minister and we discussed some of the situation in the Mediterranean, obviously, and we discussed some of the reforms that are ongoing in the Maltese system when it comes to reception, when it comes to reforming the issue of detention, etc. And I will continue those discussions with a few other ministers this afternoon and tomorrow.
So nothing basically on supporting Malta?
Well, the Commission has been supporting Malta for years and will continue to do so. But the aim is to discuss where is Malta with their reforms. There is ongoing parallel discussions from the Maltese authorities with the Commission on how to use the money allocated to Malta, as all countries, for the coming 7 years. That is a more technical discussions, but we have no big announcements to make today. It's more work between friends and allies in the discussion that we have regularly.
First one is, you said that you are meeting a number of Maltese ministers. It seems that, ironically, you're not meeting your counterpart at Malta. Why is that?
Well, Dr. Amelia is not available this time, but I meet him, unfortunately. I mean, these things happen. The date was scheduled also for this event in EASO. But I meet him regularly at the council meetings in Luxembourg or in Brussels. So we have regular contacts, and I will be meeting him in the next council meeting only in a couple of weeks, beginning of October.
As you know, the Maltese government has been very forceful about the need of burden sharing. It has been insisting about it for a long time. And as you know much more than me, this doesn't depend on the Commission, but it depends on the member states. The problem is that many out there, many of the people think that the Commission is not doing anything to help Malta in burden sharing. What is the situation? And even in the context of this Frontex Plus, you have said clearly, unlike your Italian counterpart, that this will not take the place of Mare Nostrum. And on the Italian newspapers, they've been saying that Frontex Plus will take over Mare Nostrum, which is not the case. Are we trying to sell to people something which is just pie in the sky?
We're not trying to sell anything. I am always saying things exactly as I perceive as they are. Frontex Plus, or whatever it will be called, it's been clear from the beginning that we could never totally replace Mare Nostrum. Mare Nostrum has been an extremely ambitious operation. I am full of gratitude and admiration for the Italians who've been saving so many lives. But the scope and the costs of it is something that the European Union could never bear. That we have been cut budget from the European Commission, and we could never finance such a big operation. So Frontex Plus will follow. It will be more limited in territorial and geographical scope as well as Mare Nostrum. I think it is not fair for Maltese to think that they have been abandoned. We have, and we can give you exact figures, so I don't have them in my head now, been helping Malta for a very long time, both when it comes to urgent emergency support, but also in building up reception capacity, in building in support for the screening and the process of asylum seekers. I have personally been involved in convincing member states to relocate. As you know, 700 people have been relocated from Malta to other member states. We would like that to be an even higher figure, but as you know, that does not depend upon me, but member states coming. Apart from the boat that arrived a couple of days ago, very few people have come to Malta this year. The countries who received the most are Germany, Sweden, France, UK, Italy, Belgium. So that is mainly in the north of Europe. So if you talk about burden sharing, I rather talk about responsibility sharing, because people can never be a burden. And asking for asylum or a better future is not a crime. It is perfectly legitimate. Whether you can stay or not is the process who decides. But I would also like other countries to take a bigger responsibility. There are many countries in the European Union who do not take their responsibilities. We could have 28 doing much more. And with the wars and unrest in our neighborhood, we will have increased pressure towards Europe. So everybody needs to contribute. But we have no legal mechanism to impose this on people. But it is not unfair to say that Malta is not being helped, because it is. It has received a lot of both financial and political support, and it will certainly get so in the future as well. I hope that Malta, once the premises are defined in the Frontex 2, will feel able to participate as well, as other states also, because this is a European concern. The Mare Nostrum means, as you know much better than me, means our sea, and the Mediterranean is a European sea. Do we have any questions about the EASO? That's why we're here.
I have two questions. The first one is, what is the scope of your visit in Malta if immigration will no longer be a responsibility of yours? And the second question is the European Union worried about the influx of refugees possibly increasing the risk of an attack by IS in the EU? And if yes, what measures are being adopted to counter the risk?
Well, I am Commissioner for Home Affairs, responsible for migration and other issues until the very last day of my mandate. And I will work until that very last day of my mandate. A new commission will, at its earliest, be in place the 1st of November. So my purpose is here to visit my friends and to see how it goes in EASO, because this is what I've been following up, but also taking advantage of meeting politicians, ministers, Madam President, NGOs of Malta, and also visiting two of the centers, the reception and centers of Malta, one closed and one open, to get a picture of what's happening there, of the improvements that has been made, that will be made, and what is necessary to make. We are in dialogue with the Maltese authorities about this. We have some concerns about the detention situation. So that's my purpose of being here. I visit all member countries very regularly and will continue to do so until the end of this mandate. As I said, we have probably the most complicated global situation since the Second World War, with millions of refugees globally, 52 million, as UNHCR reported the other day. Only a minuscule framework frame of those people are coming to Europe. Most of them are in the neighborhood. Of the 3 million externally displaced Syrians, only 100,000 have come to Europe, maybe a little bit more over the summer. That is nothing. And there are 6 million internally displaced Syrians as well. But of course, this is a challenge, and that's why we need to work together, all countries taking their responsibilities, and also encouraging all countries to do more, for instance, by opening up for resettlement. Is the ISIS a threat? Yes, of course. It's a terrible threat to the whole world and everything that humanity stands for, because this is one of the most brutal groups we've ever seen, who are killing children and women and journalists and minorities. We have the issue of foreign fighters. That is of concern. We are working together to see what that can be done. But that is mainly an internal concern. The foreign fighters who have left to ISIS or to Syria are people who have lived in Europe for a very long time. Many of them are European citizens. They are not refugees coming to us. They are people who live within Europe. This is a threat. We are trying to see what we can do. Mainly, it's the member states' responsibility because it's intelligence issues. But we are contributing from the Commission side with preventive measures, with exit programs, helping to connect and to see what we can do to address the issue of radicalization in this regard. But of course, it is a threat. The man who killed 4 people in the Jewish Museum in Brussels in May was a man who had been fighting for ISIS, a Frenchman who had been fighting for ISIS before.
Commissioner, as the EU boasts about a union without frontiers, do you think that the Dublin II has to be revised in order to change the notion of a fortress Europe?
Dublin was changed very recently, so we now have Dublin III, which has improved a lot when it comes to protection of minors, for instance. The best of the child is put there. It also allows for a more flexible interpretation when it comes to family reunification and so on. The Dublin 3, as we have already, is not about to be changed, as we just recently changed it, and it works. I mean, it's the countries who receive the most migrants are actually those in the north. So I don't see any appetite among at least 25 or 26 member states to change it.
And I have a question for Dr. Visser. Maybe can you elaborate more about the asylum trends that you have referred to earlier in your speech?
That's a very general question. I could elaborate for 2 days on that, but that might not be the best idea. What we have been noticing over the last years is a gradual increase in numbers of asylum seekers. What we should notice directly attached to this remark is that the composition of those numbers are differing. Last year, for example, but it's just an example, we saw a huge number, really important number of Chechens coming to Europe. That made a total change in numbers that we saw last year, second half. But at the end of last year, that disappeared, not totally, there are always numbers, but became much smaller. We saw a very much increase starting end of last year of Eritreans, where they had not been a large part of the asylum influx for quite some time. We have seen this year, not surprisingly, an increasing number in Ukrainians since the ISIS started, Iraqi. So the overall number is rising, but the different nationalities, the places where people come from, are changing every time. That makes the activities in the field of asylum so dynamic and so inspiring and so unpredictable. It's of course very regular that we get questions, what will happen in the next few months? The one thing I can assure you, that everybody who can try to predict is wrong, and everybody who will predict is lying. That is the absolute certainty that we have if we look back over many years of tradition. The best we can do, and that is one of our activities as an agency, is to analyze very careful and not only at the surface, but really going in depth in the trends that we see, and based on the trends, try to prepare for what might be the change, what might be the most likely development that we see. You can call it risk management, you can call it preparedness, but it is the best way we can do. And we see that since we started to do that on a European level, it is possible to react more adequately with better tools, better preparedness than before, when there were only the national data and national data in a Europe without borders, because even though not total of Europe is formally without borders, practically our system, our social and economic system is such that it is virtually without borders, that those who seek humanitarian protection do react very quickly and change from country to country. Only concentrating on one country and ignoring that in the neighboring country something happens that influences the total is having a very partial picture. So having the bigger picture is certainly an advantage in this.
It's possible to add another question. Commissioner Maelstom, you said that you are meeting with Maltese ministers, and one thing you have visited both open and closed detention centers. What improvements have you seen in how Malta tackled this issue of migration? What are the points that you expect Malta to work better on?
I'm visiting 2 centers tomorrow, so I haven't visited them yet, but in my former visits here, I have visited different as well. We know that there has been, and I've also talked to many people who work on the ground, NGOs, UNHCR, etc., We know that there has been improvement, and we know that the Maltese government are making amendments to their legislation to follow and to live up to the European standards, as all countries are. We, as I said, we are concerned about the systematic use of detention. Detention should be an extraordinary, only in very limited conditions according to European law. So there needs to be we need to find other open centres, other alternatives to detention. And we will also, of course, look at the conditions in the centres, how they are. We also know that the issue of minors, unaccompanied children, has been an issue, difficulties. This is also acknowledged by the Prime Minister, who personally has committed to make this a priority. So we will follow and assist the government and to advise with our expertise as well when the amendments are being made, so that Malta lives up to all the European legislation.
I have a last question. Commissioner Malmström, last year with the Lampedusa tragedy, there was a great important show of solidarity. In the last months, more people have died in the Mediterranean, yet European solidarity was less visible, especially since Italy was kind of left alone managing Mare Nostrum. How is this understood? How do we read this? Is this a sign of weakness, of acceptance maybe?
That every person who dies in the Mediterranean is, of course, very sad. What we have seen in the Mediterranean is, of course, there's an increased pressure because of the situation in many countries, so more people cross. But also, one of the paradoxal effects of Mare Nostrum is that more people have been saved, but also the increase of trafficking, because more people who exploit the people who want to come, they have also increased their business with less safe vessels, with smaller vessels, because they know that there are Italians who will probably save them. And this is a terrible paradox that has happened as well. And while the Italians, again, have really made a fantastic job, we see that the trafficking on the other side of the Mediterranean, and you as Maltese are very well aware of this phenomena, of course. We have seen a lot of solidarity towards Italy when it comes to money, when it comes to words, when it comes to actions to a certain extent. But I would say that no, it has not been enough. It has not been enough. We must do much more. I am encouraging countries to participate in the Frontex 2 operation, but also to open up for legal ways to people to come. There are very few legal ways to come to Europe today. That's why people are embarking on these journeys. And the most safe legal way is to open up for resettlement, to take people directly from the zones of conflict or just outside and bring them safely to Europe. We have seen an increase here. That is very good, but it's still not enough. So yes, there has been solidarity, but not enough. And this will be a challenge for member states to show that it's not only verbal solidarity, but also concrete action on the ground.
Thank you for coming. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you.